All right, today's lesson we're going to focus on lesson 20 for code.org, which happens to do with collision detection. So I am actually at the skill building part 2 here, and this is just a question to look at some code, and you in the box tell what you think is going to happen. So they want us to read the if statement inside the draw loop and find the different sprite properties and how they are compared. Discuss this code with your partner, and why does the code only use the width and x properties and not the height and y properties? And would you want to write this code every time you checked it? Well, if we scroll down here, we're just going to briefly go over this. I don't want to explain everything that's going to happen here, but if you look, there's the if, and we have a lot of statements here and looking and comparing things. So the bunny.x is greater than the dinner.x, and whenever you see these mean and. Okay, so and bunny.x minus dinner.x is less than bunny.width divided by 2 plus dinner.width divided by 2. It's just a really long statement. And so, I'm not really going to tell you everything that's going to go on here, but obviously this lesson is called collision detection, so we're going to kind of detect, where the characters are. And would you want to write this code every time you checked whether something was touching? I would say no. And so we're going to figure out a simpler way to use that. Okay, so in this box, you go ahead and type what you think is going to happen. And then we're going to move on to part 3 here. And then you can actually run it and see what actually happens. So we're going to go on step 3 here in the skill building. We're going to start doing some of our coding. So we'll just wait for this to load here. So it says isTouching is one of the things that we're going to start using. So instead of that lengthy code that we had, we're going to use this isTouching. So writing out the math each time you want to check whether 2 sprites is touching can take a while. So a programmer created the isTouching. Please recognize that they have isTouching here. A lot of times in programming languages, you will have to create those lengthy and statements. Sometimes you use or. They're just different types of statements evaluating things and comparing. And so they can get pretty lengthy sometimes. But for code.org here, we've got this isTouching, which is really helpful. So it says do this. Check if the bunny is touching the dinner. Okay, so drag the isTouching block into the if statement. So we're going to scroll down here, find our if statement, and it says isTouching. So we're going to drag isTouching. And then it says don't forget to change the sprite to bunny and the target to dinner. So we're going to go ahead and type in bunny here. And for target, we're going to type in dinner. So essentially that takes that whole lengthy code and applies it in here and just gives it this instead. So you don't have to have all these ands and comparisons and things like that. So now when it touches it, look at what happens. We can actually go through this. And it says if bunny, the bunny here, is touching the dinner, so that was the dinner, we're going to change the bunny's velocity to 0, the dinner's velocity to 0, the robot's velocity to 0, so everything's going to stop and they're not going to move anymore. And then we're going to change the dinner's animation to bowl. And so now that food that was in there is gone. We can kind of watch that again here. See how there's food in here, they touch, and then it disappears. So that's what happens in that if statement. Okay, if this occurs, this is what's going to happen. Okay, so let's move on to 4 here of skill building. A little slow. So now we have applesauce. In this program, the blender should only turn on when the apple touches it. So we're going to scroll down, do this. Check if the apple is touching the blender. Well, let's go ahead and run this. Is the apple touching the blender? Currently is, but nothing's happening. So drag out an if statement inside the draw loop. So let's go ahead and turn this off or reset it. All right, so it says drag an if statement. Let's go ahead and drag this out right here. Okay, and then we want to say isTouching. So we're going to go back to the sprite and say isTouching. And we're going to say that, I'm sure it gives us directions here, change the sprite and the target to the correct names. So we have apple, and probably the target is going to be the blender. So let's go ahead and do apple, and then blender. Okay. And so what do we want to do? Well, it says, change the sprite and the target. Make the blender shake only when the apple is touching it. Move the line of code that shakes the blender into the if statement. So if we go down here, we notice that we actually have the blender right here. It's already shaking it. So let's go ahead and drag this like this. So if Apple is touching Blender, blenders.x is going to be 200 plus a random number. So it's going to take that and randomly pick a number between -5 and 5, and we're going to add it to 200. So then, oh, wait, let's run that again. Doesn't do anything, doesn't do anything, and then we start blending. Okay, and then obviously once the apple goes through, well, we're done. We're no longer part of the if, and so it stops. Okay, so pretty straightforward there. Let's do one more. The skill building, I think there should be one more thing for us to use. Debugging collisions. I'm actually going to let you work on this a little bit, but I'll kind of walk through a little bit this first one. So as the balloon is popping before the tack touches it, you can use the debug block to get more information about the bug in the program. But run the code and use the arrow keys to move the tack and pop the balloon. Change the code on line 4 from false to true. So we're going to balloon.debug, we're going to say is true. Okay. And then drag out a new debug block, set the tax sprite debug property to true. So we're going to drag that out here. Oh, might as well put it down here where they have the comment. So we're going to do tack. And we're going to say that that's going to be true as well. Okay. And then run the code again, then discuss with your partner why the balloon is popping early. Resize the balloon animation to fix this. So we'll kind of let this run. Oh, we don't have a... Oh, it's not really working here, right? So we've got to work on changing... Oh, I got to... Hang on. Press the up. Got to move my tack. There we go. Okay. So now it popped. But we obviously need to resize the balloon animation to fix this because the tack wasn't getting close enough to that. So I'm going to go ahead and let you work on that one, and you can resize the balloon. But anyways, this is how you use these isTouching, things like that. You can just drag them into the if, plug them in there, and then you go ahead and make changes as needed. Hopefully that helps you, and hopefully it helps you grow in your knowledge of computer programming. Good luck.